They warned that desire bends truth, but no one told me truth bends back. So tell me, if doing the kind thing breaks a heart, was it ever the right thing at all? I met Dr. Lucian Hart the hour the sky bruised over Halcyon University. A wedge of storm pressing against the chapel's spire, as the old oak doors sighed us inside the lecture hall, like a secret we would soon regret knowing. He didn't stride, he arrived, the way weather does, inevitable once it's overhead, impossible to prepare for once it begins. What do we owe the stories we tell about ourselves when those stories become weapons? He asked, low, unhurried, and every neck lifted as if the answer were hanging from the rafters. I was Lena Ward, senior, scholarship kid, syllabus addict, armed with fine-tipped pens and the desperate faith that excellence could outrun history. Lucian wore quiet like a well-cut suit, not handsome so much as honed. Clean lines, an honest mouth, the kind of restraint that makes the room lean closer. He taught the Victorians like he'd lived inside there, whether fog and vow and the contraction of breath right before a decision one cannot uncross. It wasn't lust, not at first. It was recognition, the shock of hearing one's private grammar articulated by a stranger. He read a passage about a woman who mistakes her longing for fate, then glanced up and found me, and the air altered. Not a stare, a calibration, half a heartbeat too long. Enough for a message both of us could pretend we hadn't received. After class, I asked about the function of silence in confessional narration and hated how my voice trembled on the word confessional. He recapped his pen like he was sheathing a blade. Silence is not absence, he said. It's choreography. He smiled at my margin notes. You keep the courage off the page and only let it bleed through the corners. I was stupidly proud to be seen and suddenly terrified of what he'd seen. The first week, I stayed late because I was hungry for method. The second, because I wanted to know how his mind braided mercy into rigor. The third, because I wanted to hear him say my name again. The fourth, because one had already outpaced reason, and I was naive enough to think naming it would slow it down. Outside, thunder rinsed the quad. Inside, we stepped carefully around an unnamed precipice and called it discourse. He asked, "Do you believe in inevitability?" We were under the portico, the rain stitching curtains between columns. I said, "I believe we baptize our choices in that word to feel less guilty about them." He flinched like the truth had a taste. He didn't step closer. He didn't step back. That was the first line. We honored it by not pretending we hadn't drawn it. The plaque on his door read office hours, Tuesday 2:04 p.m., the clock read 6:41. The building was half-dark, power flash shimmer still in the bulbs, the kind of evening that turns polished floors into lakes of reflected doubt. His office held orderly chaos, spines stacked like cityscapes, a cracked mug filled with fountain pens, a pinned photo of a lighthouse facing the wall as if the light didn't want witnesses. "I brought the essay," I said, "and the apology for the length." He tapped the last paragraph. "Don't apologize for abundance. Apologize for waste. This is precise." A beat. "You're precise." His voice softened on the second sentence, and I felt foolish for wishing precision could be a caress. We talked about focalization and the tyranny of the reliable narrator. He said, "Most of us write from the angle that makes our sins look like shadows." I said, "Shadows still belong to bodies." He huffed a laugh like it cost him. The lights flickered again. We both looked up as if electricity were permission. "It wasn't. I shouldn't be here this late," I said. "I shouldn't have let you," he answered, truth cutting clean. "Walk you out?" In the stairwell, he kept one tread above me so our eyes met level, a kindness disguised as caution. On the landing, he closed his mouth around my name like he'd bitten into a difficult fruit. "Lena." "I know," I said, and the relief was a grief. We left separately, which is to say, together in a distance we were learning to live inside. Halcyon's winter reading felt like a candlelit oath, strings of paper stars, spiced cider, the murmur of donors and poets, a room warmed by the friction of polite conversation and almost confession. Lucian introduced the visiting author with a reverence that made the phrase moral imagination feel ferocious. When he read a line about the door you never opened twice, the room lined, and when he lifted his head, his gaze met mine and didn't flinch fast enough to be innocent. The pause was brief and to anyone else meaningless. To me it was a cathedral bell. The terrace was sugared with first snow. Professor Yana Cade, sharp, kind, a surgeon with truths, found me there. "Your work has a spine," she said, handing me a thin book on narrative ethics. "Keep it. They'll try to trade you doubt for it. Don't barter." She glanced at the door where Lucian stood not watching me with devout precision. He respects lines. That doesn't mean he isn't human. By Monday, the rumor had a name and a mouth. Inappropriate closeness. Not a scandal yet, just a seed with too much light. A TA told a grad, told a friend, told a hallway, and the words scuttled under doors. No one said my name. They didn't need to. Shame is a talented ventriloquist. Lucian did not address it in class. He lectured on unreliability like a confession in code, asking how much truth a story can carry before it breaks the hands that hold it. I wrote so fast my fingers cramped, clinging to the fantasy that transcription could be armor. When I slid my paper forward, he didn't risk a brush of skin. I should have been grateful. I was furious at mercy that felt like erasure. That evening, Ayana found me in the stacks. 2 rules, she said. 1. Silence is not consent, but it is strategy. 2. If they ask you a question designed to wound, answer the question you can live with having said out loud. I tried to memorize that like a spell. I failed to remember it later when I most needed it. It came as an email with the temperature of stainless steel. An anonymous complaint has been filed alleging boundary ambiguity between Dr. Hart and a student. There will be an inquiry. You may be contacted. Halcyon is committed to ensuring safe learning environments. The kind of language polished to a shine and still cutting. I wasn't contacted. He was. He asked me to come at 5. His office smelled like rain-damp wool and ink. He didn't sit. They'll ask if we've met outside class. We haven't, not beyond public events, I said. They'll ask if I've favored you. You've worked me harder, I said. Which is how I know you haven't. He scrubbed a hand over the stubble he usually didn't have, as if the day had sanded him down. I'm requesting you transfer sections. No. It protects you. It punishes me, I said. For something we didn't do. It punishes me, he corrected quietly, for wanting to. The room tilted. The truth made a sound like glass behind a curtain. He exhaled. Lena, I need you to let me be the adult, even if it makes you hate me. I won't hate you, I said. I'll just learn to write around the outline of you. I transferred. My new professor was kind, brilliant, wrong for my grief. I stopped speaking in class and started writing like a ceiling was lowering. The inquiry concluded with language that managed to both absolve and assign. No evidence of misconduct found. Recommend additional boundary training. Policy words. A life turned into a memo. Nothing fixed, everything altered. Winter hardened. The creek glassed over and lied about its strength. I walked the long way home past the boathouse and the iron footbridge that always sang when the wind pressed its ribs. The rumor hushed, then reanimated whenever someone needed heat. Distance is a liar. It tells you the ache will starve if you don't feed it while it devours you on fasting days. He kept his distance with the devotion of a monk, which is to say, he made a sanctuary out of the space where his name used to sit in my mouth. And yet, we still existed along the same longitude of campus, a bell's radius, a corridor's eddy, the shared weather of a small city. One night, I returned to the portico where he'd once asked about inevitability. Snow fell in diagonals. He arrived like he'd promised himself not to, a man with his hands in his coat like they might betray him if left unguarded. You shouldn't have asked me to come, he said. And you shouldn't have come, I answered. We're even. What do you want, Lena? I want to know if you meant it, I said, that we'd hold. He closed his eyes, and for a moment I saw him the way I'd never let myself. Not professor or rule but person, flanked by obligation and desire like 2 cliffs that keep eroding into each other. I meant it, he said. I mean it now. Then why does this feel like drowning on dry land? Because holding is a rope in the fog, he said. You don't move forward, you don't let go, you just don't get lost. I wanted to tell him ropes burn. I wanted to ask him if he'd carry the scars where I could see them. Goodbye, Lena, he said, as if the word had to be cut into 2 to exit his mouth. I said goodbye like a benediction I didn't believe in yet. Time didn't heal. It hardened edges into handles so I could lift what I couldn't drop. I graduated with ribbons I barely noticed, and a map of a city I'd learned to cross without passing the rooms where my life could have turned out differently. I moved east, edited sentences for a living, learned to bless other people's truths without dimming my own. Some nights, the rope still burned my palms in memory. On those nights, I wrote the ache down and it stopped asking to be the whole story. In March, at a conference in a hotel that thought glass could make the sky agree with us, I went to a panel on ethics in narrative. He sat 3 rows ahead, new gray at his temples like frost that decided to stay. He didn't turn. I learned the miracle of breathing without announcing it. He asked a question about the duty we owe our subjects when our desire to understand them exceeds our right to. The room went still because the answer, of course, is always and never. After, in a bright hallway smelling of coffee that had given up, he waited by a window. Lena. Aleutian. Are you well? He asked. I am, I said. Are you? He nodded once, then shook his head, truth getting its say. I'm trying to be the story I can live with. So am I said. We didn't reach, we didn't rehearse. He looked at my badge, Associate Editor, Rook and Finch Review, and smiled like relief had muscles. You built the life, he said. You kept the line, I answered, and for the first time I didn't want to punish him for it. It still hurts, he said. It should, I said. Otherwise we lied to ourselves about what it was. He nodded, and in the nod lived an entire winter and the rope and the fog and the promise that felt like surrender and salvation in alternating breaths. Be kind to the next impossible truth, he said, even if kindness isn't the right thing. Then I'll choose the honest thing, I said. We parted not like a door closing, but like a lens focusing, same world, different clarity. I went back into the bustle and the noise, and for the first time since the sky bruised over Halcyon, I felt the weather change inside me and didn't mistake it for fate.